right, good evening. I'd like to call this special meeting of the Lake Mills City Council to order. This is March 22nd, 2022. I'm not sure who we have in the background. Misty, are you there?
I am.
Awesome. Can you give us a roll call?
Ms. Curler?
Here.
Mr. Waters?
Here?
Mrs. Bishop?
Here.
Ms. Quidnow?
Here.
Mr. Fields?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're all here tonight. If you can all please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I got my computer back up. So we're going to go right into council business. Item A on the agenda is Resolution 22-11. Misty, can you read that resolution?
Resolution 22-11, a resolution authorizing the City of Lake Mills to submit a grant request to the Wisconsin Department of Transportation for funding through their Surface Transportation Local Program.
Okay, thank you. Can we have a motion so we can enter discussion here?
I'll move to approve Resolution 22-11.
Second.
All right, motion by Mr. Fields, a second by Ms. Quidnow. All right, city staff, discussion?
Yeah, this is probably the last grant opportunity that we got noticed on. Historically, they focus on specific types of roads, collectors, and we had been working on those types of roads. So CPO and West Lake Place and West Park Lake Place, whatever it is. And those types of roads, but we got noticed that the local roads were now an option, which had never been an option before. That came up in mid-February. So we put together, we were putting together the final phases of our local road program anyways. We've been running a pretty extensive local road program since 2013. And we decided to make a pretty significant shift in order to be able to capture a significant amount of federal dollars. So I'll let Dwayne go through the program for you.
This is very much what we discussed last month when we talked about the approach for this funding.
Bless you.
In fact, many of the documents are the same. The spreadsheet is, the top half of the spreadsheet talks about the Brookstone proposed local bill funding in the application that we're looking at this actually next week for 23 construction. The next section of that spreadsheet includes 3 streets. Those are called non-Brookstone proposed local bill funding applications. And those 2 general sections are what we're talking about on this motion or this resolution. Thank you. There are 2 maps that are attached. I'm sorry, there are 3 maps that are attached. One is the Brookstone area that is proposed at this moment. Again, the application is being worked on. And the Aqua non-Brookstone proposed local build funding in the 2nd and 3rd maps that are attached is tentatively what we are looking to apply for on that April 1st deadline.
So the non-Brookstone is Tower and Keys?
And a portion of Connor Court as well.
Concord. Where's Concord?
Just off of Grove, as you come down the hill over here.
Okay.
Any questions at this time? Yes.
So I'm just doing the math here, so it looks like about 958,000, if I'm doing that right. That would be the total cost of those two projects are the estimate that we would be applying for, and then if we receive this grant, that would be 80% of it, and then the city would be responsible for the 20%.
Correct.
And that would be in our 2023 budget?
That would combine our 2022 budget and our proposed 2023 budget for street maintenance was a total of $550,000.
Okay.
You are correct, we're in the ballpark of $950,000 to $960,000 is the proposed funding. 80% of that, or upwards of $750,000, would be provided through the funding, and then the remainder, 20%, would be paid by the city under that maintenance program. A point to realize is there are costs associated with putting the application together and then putting the plan specs and estimates together that will be due on August 1st for a state-let project. So typically our maintenance programs, in fact, we hope to put the concrete bids out for the city this week. Typically we do that in-house, but this project obviously through the federal funding will run through the Wisconsin DOT, so there are some additional requirements there.
I want to make one thing clear. All the construction will be done in '23, but it does cover both years, so we're not giving up any years. We're just billing it all in '23. So while he said it was '22 and '23, that's, where the funding is coming from. Okay. The other item is doing the engineering. We don't file for that because it gives us a better chance of getting the grant, and then doing some other work above the scope of the project. If you actually consider how it balances out, it's more of a 60-40 split, but we still make quite a bit of money by filing for the grant.
And that was going to be my follow-up question. So if I understand you right, then it's the city would be responsible for 20% of the construction cost, but then there's also some engineering that we would be paying for that's outside of this grant.
Right, and then there's some construction that we wanted to do this year that would help our eligibility to qualify, and it's mainly handicapped ramps.
Oh, right, we talked about that at last council meeting, yeah, okay.
And we have gotten some positive feedback or in the inquiries with the grant funding, that if we do that approach, that we are able to do that in the 23 program. The reason we're looking to do that in the 23 program, in the 24 program, we can include that in the funding. The reason we cannot in this year is they are not allowing any project that might require property acquisition or easements in this round. So we are looking to try and fix some of those handicapped ramps now so that if there is any question, we're able to get into the 23 funding.
Thanks.
Any other questions? All right. Anything else from city staff? I think we're good to go for a roll call vote. Misty?
Mr. Waters?
Aye.
Mrs. Bishop?
Aye.
Ms. Quidnow?
Aye.
Mr. Fields?
Aye.
Ms. Curler?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
All right, thank you. Next on the agenda is Resolution 22-12. Misty, can you read that one as well?
Resolution 22-12, a resolution authorizing the City of Lake Mills to submit a grant request to the Economic Development Administration for funding through their American Rescue Plan Act Economic Adjustment Assistance Grant Program.
All right, can we get a motion for consideration here?
I move to accept Resolution 22-12, the resolution authorizing the City of Lake Mills to submit a grant request to the Economic Development Administration for funding through their American Rescue Plan Act Economic Adjustment Assistance Grant Program.
Second that.
All right, motion by Ms. Quidnow, second by Ms. Curler. Staff comment?
Yeah, I'm generally driven by these, so that the primary document that puts this project forward is the transportation plan, which was completed in 2004. We then incorporated that into page 98 of the comprehensive plan, and then it's been mentioned multiple times in the strategic plan since 2014. And in January 20th of this year, we discussed it during a study session, and consensus was that I should go ahead and see if I could get a grant. At that point, we were looking at the STP Urban, and I came back and told you that it wouldn't qualify because it was a new street and they wouldn't do new streets. They only do existing collectors, rebuilds. So we discussed the fact that we would continue to look at grants. We came up with this one, which is an ARPA-related one, and it's similar to the other one at 80/20. It does fund not only streets but water and sewer. So the estimate here is a little low, and the engineers are currently working on updating the estimate. But if I remember, he said today it was $3.5 million, right? The other thing is that we would use the special assessment to meet our 20%. So we would special assess St. Paul's and Lake Mills Area School District for that. So technically, other than the engineering, it's funded by other people.
Question?
Yeah,
ahead, Ms. Quidnell.
in looking at the resolution as it's written, on the very bottom where it says "be it further resolved" and all of that, is that what you're referring to as being able to do the negotiations and things with the other school districts or with anyone in order to provide funding to help benefit the?
No, this is all, well, I shouldn't say that. This is all federal related. So it's any documents that I would have to complete for the federal government, okay, so we're currently out trying to get letters of recommendation. So we have a couple people already interested in providing letters of recommendation. That would be something that I would be authorized to do. But mainly it's like looking at documents and following up on signatures and those types of things once we start to submit next week. So they're like EDA 900E, EDA 900A, and they're basically those types of documents that I have to be able to fill out and sign and send in.
However, this feels very broad, and I'm wondering if there's any way that we can word it in such a way that has to do with specifically with what with what you're saying. Just because of the,
Are you talking about the resolution?
yeah, at the very bottom of the resolution, be it further resolved, that section with regard to what the city manager and his designees who are not named in this case. But I'd not seen that before, and maybe I haven't been paying close enough attention, but I feel like
I think it's the exact same wording that was in the previous resolution.
Okay,
In fact, it's the exact same wording that's been in all the STP urbans and the federal grants, because that's what they asked for.
gotcha. Okay. I stand corrected.
Any other questions? Yes, Ms. Curley?
I guess I had a question about the property to the south of the current terminus of CP. Isn't there some wetlands in that area, and will there need to be some evaluation, some mitigation, possible changing in the route? I don't know how that fits into the grant application, but is that stuff that will have to be studied and evaluated?
Yes, all the environmental, archaeological has to be a part of it as part of that project. So once the grant's awarded, then we have to start looking at that. We do some preliminary work to give them an idea of what we're looking at, but the actual hardcore work comes after the grant's awarded. similar to what happened with the boat launch.
Okay.
They want some level of confidence in the right-of-way acquisition. So we'll be looking for letters from people saying, yeah, we're interested in doing that. And we also have to evaluate multiple alternatives. And so one of them would stay totally in the city already. We wouldn't have to look at any annexations. We would, the one, while it doesn't go straight through like probably EDA would want, it stays all in the city and it's working with property owners that have already agreed to cooperate.
If I could add. So just more generally speaking, when you're seeking federal funding like this, there's a NEPA process, right? So in this particular grant, they want us at a certain level of understanding. It's not fully designed, obviously, at this point. That's part of kind of next steps. But they want an understanding that the project can move forward generally. So in that evaluation, Strand will be doing the design, and then, we'll look at any of the environmental components to this particular project. It's, archaeological was mentioned, wetland, and then obviously there's a trail crossing. So all part of the project, but to come as we get a further design to actually evaluate.
And so what we're seeing on the maps is that's kind of the desired routing, but could be subject to change when you go through that NEPA process.
Absolutely, and this is similar to the routes that were proposed, I guess, shown on future land use maps way back to 2009 and 2005,
Cool.
as
Yeah.
Steve. So this follows right along with those plans were saying initially. So.
And there was some preliminary environmental work done on both of those times, so
Okay. Thanks.
I think
Mrs. Bishop?
So what I'm hearing a little bit of an allusion to is that the current plan we're looking at here in the maps includes land the city doesn't currently own. Is that correct?
yes.
Okay. And then the workaround is that there's a secondary plan that we don't have in front of us that also includes land the city doesn't own, but there may be some easier ways to obtain access or rights to that land.
Yes, we've already had conversations with the property owners that give us an indication they would be willing to cooperate.
Okay, but that's not in front of us.
No, that's not in front of you.
And those costs, either for the current plan in front of us or for your secondary proposed plan to acquire that land or those rights, those costs are not included in the cost assessment of the actual construction that we see here, which is about the 3.5 million.
Those are included in that cost, but it would change based on the ultimate route. But the grant would still remain the same. So part of the process is that you have to provide alternate routes. They want you to have multiple routes proposed anyways. And so we had the preferred route, which is the one that's shown here. And then there's alternate routes that we would look at to say, based on this, we would look at going this direction or this direction. And the primary one here is being in the city and having cooperative landowners.
So the construction costs were provided here equal about 2.8 million, and you're saying the 3.5 includes land acquisition costs.
Actually, the 2.5 included acquisition costs. I'm saying that the other one includes water and sewer.
That we saw did not have water and sewer?
Yeah, the original proposal was for a STP urban, which doesn't fund water or sewer. So we just did the street proposal. The EDA does all of it. And so
That's why it's being added.
we've thrown in everything.
Anything that could be an economic benefit, obviously in this case, providing the full service of utility, stormwater, et cetera, would be eligible expenses here. And so obviously that's why we would include it. As far as the alternative analysis, that's also a part of the process. It's a requirement. No build would be a third alternative, but ultimately what we're evaluating is whether or not an alternative is a possibility. A preferred alternative would always be built into the narrative and then followed through with the grant.
Okay, so assuming that 3.5 number includes the land acquisition costs, 20% of that would be about $700,000 that the city is responsible for, and that's what you're saying would be special assessed to two different landowners?
How much?
$700,000 is 20% of 3.5 million.
The special assessment will be determined at the time. I know that a certain amount of money has been set aside by each group, but they have to pay whatever the special assessment is. They both agreed at the time that they started their developments to be special assessed. And so the cost of the special assessment is based on the design of the roadway. And so what their costs are will be determined at some date when the engineering is substantially complete.
So when the school district has a special assessment, how do they pass that on to the taxpayers? It doesn't go to referendum, they just add it onto the tax bill?
Yep, they have to pay their special assessment.
Well, through our taxpayer dollars, okay. And how have we besides being in the comprehensive plan, how have we identified the need for this specific extension as opposed to other roads that could be built in the city with land we currently own?
Well, the primary thing here is multiple routes through the city. So Main Street's the only one that goes all the way through the city. So if for some reason something happened to Main Street at a certain point, in fact, when we did South Main Street, we took a lot of complaints and a lot of pushes to complete CP Avenue because the alternate routes were Ferry and Pinnacle Grove. And they didn't feel those were appropriate neighborhoods to run alternate routes through. CP Avenue is almost all industrial commercial. And so it would be the most likely full all the way through alternate route. And so at that point in time, it was identified as a preferred option. We tried to get WisDOT to cooperate with us on building that. They, at the time, were fund restricted. And Steve may remember that. And so they opted not to do it at that time. We did do some preliminary work. In fact, I think the documents you have here tonight were actually done at that point in time, which might have been 2016.
March of 2015
15?
is
So-
the document date.
So you get a feel that there was, CP Avenue has been identified as a critical through north-south route, and that there are multiple benefits to having that through route. One of them is to keep Main Street from having to go to 4 lanes, making it more walkable in this area where there are a lot of schools. The second one is that if something happened on Main Street, you still have an alternate option for getting all the way through the city to the south end and the north end. And so those were two of the critical options. If you read the transportation plan, it lays out quite specifically what the goals were in having this additional route and why it was important.
Steve, if I may, I just want to clarify, the 2015 estimate did not include property costs. And I'm not sure if at least I didn't clarify that with Matt today. When he said 3.5, I'm not sure if he had a property acquisition in there, in that number. Again, we haven't seen that full document. He's still working on it. But I want to caution that it may or may not be in there.
Thank you.
One of the items that's unique about this grant is they don't allow condemnation. So that's why we had to look at the route that was with fully cooperative landowners.
Yes.
So with regard to the property landowners that have agreed to the special assessment, are they at all aware of as to the cost that may be associated with the special assessment? Because we certainly do not want to have anyone caught off guard.
Yeah, both the groups that are agreed to be special assessed had a good idea of what the special assessment costs were going to be. The one, St. Paul's, was obviously trying to slide it off as far as they could in the future. The school district, they knew when they accepted that land that that type of option was going to become required, and actually, I think that they have $2.7 million budgeted for this type of problem.
So they have $2.7 million set aside for whatever costs are associated with extending. Are they on board with the idea of extending CP Avenue? Okay.
And this proposal would decrease that amount significantly since it's an 80-20 share, correct?
Well, it could. It depends on what the engineering is. But if you're looking at the total cost, there are other things that they have to do. So, and that's kind of in the impact. So when we do an analysis, we have to do a traffic impact analysis on the intersection of 89 and Main. So you'll probably see that on your next agenda. And that comes out of the special assessment fund, and then it gets special assessed against those two groups. And then, because they're the ones benefiting from that improvement. And then same with the roadway that runs in front of them. Now, when EDA looks at this, they're looking at the whole street. So when we apply the money that we're special assessing them to our percentage of the total cost, they then apply that as an 80-20. So that's why we get out of having to fund any significant amount of work here.
All right, any other questions? All right, seeing none, let's move to a roll call. Misty?
Mrs. Bishop?
No.
Ms. Quidnow?
Aye.
Mr. Fields?
Aye.
Ms. Curler?
Aye.
Mr. Waters?
Aye.
Motion passed 4-1.
All right, thank you. And that concludes our agenda tonight. So the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.